Kenya is currently seeing one of its strongest avocado harvests in years. But behind these record-breaking volumes, a massive paradigm shift is taking place. The global market has evolved, demanding a sophisticated new standard of sustainability, traceability, and razor-sharp competition. From skyrocketing logistics costs to navigating unpredictable global headwinds, the journey from Kenyan orchards to international shelves is more complex than ever before. How are exporters rewriting the playbook to stay ahead? And why is the future of this sector branching out into unexpected new territories? Let's dive in.
You ever pick up a perfect avocado at the store and just wonder, how did it get here? Well, chances are it started its journey thousands of miles away in a beautiful Kenyan orchard. And, its path to your kitchen is this amazing story of quality, resilience, and just incredible adaptation to a world that's changing like crazy. So let's peel back the layers on Kenya's avocado industry and find out what it really takes to make it on the global stage today. All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the good news, a really fantastic harvest. But then we'll get into why, believe it or not, that's just not enough anymore. We're going to look at the new global standards they're up against, the major headwinds they're facing, the super clever strategies they're using to stay ahead, and finally, their big plan for a future that's basically shockproof. Okay, first things first, the harvest itself. Before you can even think about competing globally, you've got to have a world-class product, right? And this season, Kenya is absolutely delivering on that front. It all begins right here, in these incredible orchards with growing conditions that are pretty much perfect. This is where the promise starts. And on the other side, you see the results of that promise. Perfectly uniform Hass avocados, all boxed up and ready to go. This journey, from the tree to the shipping container, is really the foundation of Kenya's entire global reputation. So how'd they pull this off? Well, it's kind of like a three-part formula. First, you just need a lot of avocados, and the great weather helped with that. But what's really important is that the quality is way up. We're talking more consistent sizing, better uniformity across the board. And this isn't just luck. Nope. This is the direct result of some serious investment in smarter farming and better training right there at the source. And you don't have to take my word for it. This positive outlook is being confirmed by the people on the ground. Solomon Mumbi, who's the CEO of a major exporter called Avohass, he puts it pretty simply. The harvest itself is a huge success. But here's the big twist in the story. A few years ago, a great harvest like this, that would have been the end of it. Story over. But today, it's just the very beginning. The goalposts have completely moved, and there's this new, incredibly demanding global standard that's taken over the game. This right here, this explains the whole massive shift. The old way of doing things was simple. Just grow a ton of avocados. But the new standard? It's a completely different ballgame. Now success means hitting these super precise retailer specs, having QR code level traceability, proving your sustainability, and guaranteeing a perfect, unbroken cold chain all the way from the orchard to the supermarket aisle. And this quote from Solomon Mumbi just nails the new reality. The keywords aren't volume or supply anymore. Now it's all about consistency, certifications, and specifications. This is not a simple commodity game. It's a high-stakes game of precision and really of trust. So who's driving all this change? Well, for the most part, it's the European market. As you and I demand more healthy, convenient, ready-to-eat foods, the big retailers are forced to demand much, much higher levels of quality and transparency. So while Europe is still the most reliable market, to get in, you have to master this complex new rulebook. Okay, I love this because it shows the brutal reality of modern exports. Think of it like a compliance funnel. At the very top, you pour in the entire massive harvest. But with each step, strict sizing, cold chain management, sustainability checks, more and more of it gets filtered out. What actually comes out at the bottom is only the absolute best. It's a fraction of the original volume, but it's the only stuff perfect enough for the world's toughest shelves. And hey, as if that wasn't challenging enough, these exporters are also dealing with some major global forces that are completely out of their control. These are what we call the macro headwinds. Exporters are really facing a perfect storm of challenges from the outside. First, you've got these insane logistics pressures. Shipping costs are just soaring, and that creates constant uncertainty. Then there's climate variability, which makes it harder than ever to predict what your crops are going to do. And finally, there's what you could call compliance escalation. Just when you think you've met the standard, guess what? It gets even tougher. And of course, geopolitics plays a huge role too. While conflicts in places like the Middle East can cause some logistical hiccups for certain routes, the real takeaway here is resilience. The main shipping corridor to Europe, which is their core market, has stayed stable and uninterrupted. This allows exporters to manage disruptions by just dynamically rerouting shipments when they have to.
So you're faced with all these pressures from inside and outside. What's the plan? How do you fight back? Well, this is where we get into the really smart, proactive strategies that define the modern Kenyan exporter.
They fight back with what you could call a mitigation engine. Think about it. On one side, you're feeding in all the problems, rising costs, climate shocks, new rules. And on the other side, you counterpunch with strategic investments. Things like stronger partnerships, flawless post-harvest handling, and a rock-solid cold chain. And the result is that even with all that external chaos, a perfect product still comes out the other end. But being resilient isn't just about playing defense. The smartest strategy of all is to build a business that is fundamentally stronger and more adaptable. And what that means is diversifying. So part one of the strategy is something we all know. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. While Europe is the stable bedrock of their business, they are intelligently expanding their footprint. That means making targeted plays in North America, getting a solid foothold in the Middle East, and exploring other high-growth emerging markets. It's all about spreading the risk and creating new opportunities. Now, the second layer of this is to diversify the product itself. Avohass's sister company, Favela, specializes in premium, fresh-cut herbs. And we're talking about things like basil, chives, rosemary, and mint, a whole portfolio that taps into a totally different global demand, but it leverages the exact same expertise in quality control and logistics. It's brilliant. And here is how it all comes together beautifully. You have these two product layers, your premium avocados and your fresh-cut herbs, and you have multiple market layers, your stable core markets and your high-potential growth markets. This multi-layered model is incredibly resilient. It can absorb shocks, whether they're from geopolitics, the climate, or the market, and that ensures a stable and unbroken supply chain. So the path forward is pretty clear. It's about being visible, showing off Kenyan quality on the world stage at big forums like MacFruit. It's about committing to a sustainable, future-proof model, and it's about being smart, using market intelligence to figure out what consumers are going to want next. This is their promise, not to just meet the global standard, but to be the ones who set it. The journey of this Kenyan avocado really shows us an incredible evolution in our global food system, a whole new standard of traceability, quality, and resilience. And, it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about the next time we're at the supermarket. If this is the new standard for an avocado, what's the new standard for the rest of the food in your kitchen?
Welcome to the debate. Imagine a shipping container of, Kenyan Hass avocados, and it's delayed by 2 weeks because of a logistical bottleneck in the Red Sea.
Right, which is happening quite a bit lately.
Exactly. Now, if those avocados were grown and packed to just baseline specifications, they arrive as mush. But if they were grown to strict European retail specs, featuring hyper-precise temperature controls and rigorous post-harvest handling, they actually survive that wait. So today, we are looking at the highly positive Kenyan agricultural season. Exporters like Avohass are seeing, honestly, incredible volumes and uniformity.
Yeah, they really are. But that success begs the question we're debating today. I mean, does the immense cost of meeting top-tier global market quality standards actually justify the investment? I argue that the steep, escalating cost of compliance is just a dangerous resource drain. True stability comes from dynamic diversification into emerging markets and alternative products.
And I contend that adhering to strict global standards, particularly the ones demanded by Europe, is exactly what engineers a resilient, superior supply chain. I call this the European catalyst model.
The European catalyst.
Yeah. European markets aren't just being difficult for the fun of it. They are responding to massive consumer demand for ready-to-eat produce and verified sustainability. To hit those specs, Kenyan exporters are forced to upgrade everything, from orchard management down to cold chain consistency.
Right, but at what cost?
Well, it acts like a wind tunnel stress test. If your supply chain doesn't break under European pressure, it becomes aerodynamically perfect for any other destination.
Okay, a wind tunnel is a great analogy, but you're forgetting that running a wind tunnel is ridiculously expensive.
Sure, but
No, seriously. Every layer of that compliance funnel, the strict sizing, the specialized sustainability certifications, it just burns cash. And when you combine that overhead with severe climate variability and surging global transit costs, you are squeezing your margins to death. You don't build stability by forcing your product through a single, highly regulated bottleneck.
Hold on, let me stop you there. Are you saying those compliance investments don't pay for themselves in loss prevention?
I'm saying,
Look at what Avohass has built with their mitigation engine. Because they invest in those hyper-precise temperature controls and rigorous supply chain partnerships, specifically to get European certifications, they literally buy themselves an extra 2 weeks of shelf life. That is how they absorb those logistical pressures.
I hear you. I do. But extending shelf life just to satisfy a European retailer is, well, it's treating a symptom, not the underlying disease. The disease is reliance on a single, rigid market structure. My approach is the diversified resilience model.
Which means what, practically? Just selling to markets with lower standards?
No, it means structural agility. Look at how geopolitical disruptions in the Middle East are handled when you aren't tied solely to Europe, by aggressively allocating shipments to the Middle East itself, or Canada markets where demand is surging without that crushing regulatory overhead. The impact of a delayed ship changes from a catastrophe to a manageable hiccup. You physically alter the logistics route and spread the risk.
Okay, but if you step away from the pressure of top-tier compliance, don't you risk your infrastructure decaying? Like, if you aren't forced to hit the highest bar, quality inevitably drops.
Not if you diversify your crop portfolio entirely. Take Favela Company Limited. They aren't just growing avocados. They are pivoting into premium fresh-cut herbs.
Wait, how does moving from avocados to herbs solve a maritime logistics problem?
It completely shifts the cash flow cycle and the transport mechanism. An avocado tree is a heavy, long-cycle investment that relies on massive, slow-moving container ships. Short-cycle fresh herbs can be harvested in weeks and flown out in the cargo hold of commercial passenger jets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you bypass maritime bottlenecks entirely. By using global forums like MacFruit to build these varied business lines, you build real financial resilience. Exporters don't just survive retailer specifications, they construct alternative pathways to revenue.
Okay, I see the appeal of that agility. But I'd argue that the baseline infrastructure required to efficiently export short-cycle herbs via air freight, well, that was built on the back of the discipline learned from stringent avocado exports.
Interesting, we are definitely looking at two fundamentally different philosophies for survival here.
Yeah.
To capture reliable value.
And the other builds a fleet of smaller, agile vehicles taking different routes to bypass the funnel entirely.
Exactly.
What we certainly agree on, though, is that the underlying quality of the Kenyan harvest is exceptional.
Oh, absolutely. The raw material is fantastic. The real challenge is the supply chain economics required to strategically bring it to the world.
Yeah, it's a fascinating tension between engineering perfect compliance versus engineering total flexibility. We will leave it to you to consider which strategy truly secures the future of agricultural exports.